Our guests on the show joining in, Sunil Garg, Managing Director, Head of Research, Asia Pacific Equities at JP Morgan. We'll also have Varun Goel, Head of PMS at Karvy Private Wealth joining in. And on the technicals, Sandeep Wagle of Aptar Technical Advisory Services.
Let's get in the views really on what to do with the markets, the macro situation as well as the micros. Sunil Garg is with us. There is Sandeep Wagle too. Chaman, thanks so much for joining in, both of you. Sunil, come to you first. India has been dealing with macro issues. I mean, trade account is not in favor. The currency is looking increasingly weak in today's session too. What's the view really? Will the macros have a significant impact on investor sentiment?
See, look, a lot of the macro negatives, if you talk about twin deficits, if you talk about inflation, I think that's been there for a while as a negative. I think it's understood. It's to some extent, I guess the market does factor that in. The question is what's happening at the margin. At the margin, inflation is easing. At the margin, interest rates have been reduced. At the margin, there's fiscal consolidation. Commodity prices have come down. I think that is, all of it is going to help offset some of the historical negatives that we've had. I do think that we should certainly look at an inverted yield curve right now. I think that is probably also one of the reasons why you probably get some short-term consolidation in this market.
Okay, let's also get in Varun Goel, who now joins in on the show from Karvy Private Wealth. Varun, to start off with, how much of an impact do you think the overall currency has on the equity markets? And do you think that we're going to continue with this kind of a volatile move in light of the way the global situation is also panning out?
I think rupee weakening is definitely a cause of concern. There are a lot of optimism about current account deficit being tamed, but I think last quarter's number has really come as a big negative surprise. We do believe that going forward, current account situation in the country will get better, and then rupee should see some stability. But in the short term, definitely it is a negative for the overall market. However, there are sectors like pharma and IT, which are essentially export-driven sectors, which continue to benefit from a weakening of the rupee, and we believe that these are sectors to really play for at this point of time.
Sandeep, what does the Nifty do on the expiry date tomorrow? Also, predominantly, what's the view on the Bank Nifty? A few people believe that the Bank Nifty will go up, and that could lead the Nifty higher too. What's your sense?
Well, I'll start with the Nifty. What does the Nifty do? I think till it breaks 6050, I don't want to get overtly bearish. I would term this as a correction, whatever fall it is coming. Clearly, over the last 4 trading sessions, it has moved from 5960 to 6120. So 30, 40, 50 point correction has to be termed as a correction, not as a fall. I think the expiry will be somewhere around 6080 to 6100, very much currently where it is. So I don't see the Nifty moving up one way. In case it goes to 6120, there will be some correction. And I don't see the Nifty breaking 6050. That could be a very, very strong support. Now, talk of the Bank Nifty, I was seeing some weakness during the day, but again, the way it closed in the end, from a low of 12,780, it moved up by some 70-80 points. So range bound between 12,900 on the upside, 12,727.30 on the downside. I would term both the patterns of the Nifty and the Bank Nifty almost similar.
Varun, wanted your opinion on one of the key contributors in today's session. That would have to be a Sun Pharmaceutical, really moving from strength to strength, hit its 52-week high. It was positive news when it came to the results, the guidance, as well as the brokerage calls. Do you think that one can look at this count as one of the best bets within the pharmaceutical space? Would you nibble in?
Well, I think the best sector that one can invest in this point of time is definitely pharmaceutical industry. I think most of the companies, especially the larger cap ones, have come up with fairly impressive numbers. We're looking at 20 to 25% kind of revenues and bottom line growth for most of the tier 1 companies. We believe that this trend will continue in the next few quarters. Also, there is an added benefit of currency, as I was just mentioning. So overall, the sector remains a top sectoral pick. I think one would also need to take the valuations into account. I think the sector will incrementally tend to get positive, and any incremental buying needs to keep that in mind. But I think looking at how the markets are, there are very few pockets that one can really do fresh buying, and pharma is the only space which kind of stands out.
Oh yes, indeed, lots of mid caps to be discussed as well, which we'll do on the other side of this break. But some key names which would have a reaction in tomorrow's session. All of these result boys. Sandeep, to you, and how do these stocks look on the charts? Tata Motors and ONGC.
Well, Neeraj, we had a buy in ONGC early in the morning. We had a buy in Tata Motors in the 10:30 show, so that says it all. And both of them have not performed badly. Having said that, some more upside is what I would say. I would be talking of a trading upside in both of these stocks. Stock of a 2, 3, 4% trading upside. I'm not that gung-ho of a 10, 12, 15% at this point in time. Tata Motors has to do a lot to do that. In fact, at 304, I would talk of a 312, 314. It has to really clear that zone of 315, and once that is taken out with volumes, then we can talk of 350, 360. But I think at this point in time, that would be a little premature.
What about the other earnings, Sandeep? A BPCL and a Cipla?
Cipla has been negative, Neeraj, but even yesterday I maintained that I was not interested in selling. It has bounced back from the support levels of 390, 392, but still it is not giving me a pattern which will suggest a buy. This is a bounce back, can bounce back to 405, 408. I don't want to take a call for that. Now BPCL, I always prefer to talk of the next few weeks or the next few months. In that sense, I'm comfortable buying in the range of 370 to 350. As a trade, no, I'm not comfortable. It can move down by 3-4%. Sensing nothing on the charts. Short-term charts a little bearish.
Varun, come in on this. If indeed there is a coal regulator formed, and if indeed the processes do get simplified, is it a big positive for the power companies in particular?
Well, I think any step in the forward direction is a welcome move. There are a lot of issues that we have been facing in the power sector. There are almost 18,000 megawatts which is up and in place but not running because of shortage of coal. So I think definitely if we can do something to address coal scarcity, if we can make sure that the adequate amount of coal is available to power plants in this country, it is definitely a welcome move. We don't know as yet how effective and how soon this thing will work out, but hopefully things should get better in the future.
It's been pretty toppy for a stock like a Wockhardt, Sandeep, in today's session. Do you think that the more downside pressure can be envisaged on the charts come tomorrow?
Aman, yes. Looking at today's pattern, I would talk of a level of 1050, and in case that is broken, then we can even see levels sub 1000 levels, 980 or something. But as a trade, you can take that. But since it is not in FNO, I am not very comfortable taking that trade. But talk of the weekly charts, this is a support area. So one cannot sell off your the delivery or the holding. And that is a level to buy with a long term in mind is what I would say.
Varun, one set of earnings that may be disappointed, not really the earnings really, but more so the announcement that came along with it, HDIL and termination of the Mumbai airport project, rehab project. How big an impact does it have on HDIL? It's not an overowned stock by any means, but does this news dampen the spirits completely, if at all?
Well, without going into specifics of this case, I know typically as a policy, we have tended to stay away from most of the listed real estate plays. We believe that the corporate governance practices in most of these companies leave a lot to be desired for. And as far as the fundamentals of the sector are concerned, we have still not seen any sign of revival of sales activity in NCR and Delhi. The only pockets where there is a resilience in sales, what can be seen is Bangalore and Hyderabad and to some extent Chennai. So I think overall, real estate space continues to be sluggish, especially in NCR and Mumbai area, and we would typically avoid most of these companies in this space.
Sunil, what really stood out in today's session once again continued to be the pharmaceutical basket, which continues to remain a favorite for most of the investors. What's your sense as to the kind of returns one can see going forward?
I should think so. Look, this market essentially has lacked visibility in earnings and cash flow. So wherever you've had that in the defensives and the staples, you've definitely had a re-rating, and of course there's been some M&A or some buyback help as well for these sectors. But if our view on the macro positives is going to pan out, then clearly there is a rotational move into cyclicals, be it financials, be it deep cyclicals. So yes, I think it's probably where we would go as well.
What's your stance on the financial theme, Sunil? Because given where we are in the interest rate cycle, coupled with the long-term story of large segment of population being unbanked, where do these stocks go?
See, I mean, look, the underpenetration opportunity in India, I think is been there for a while. I think that's definitely helpful. I think the hold back, the headwind that we've had from essentially a much tighter monetary policy, I think as that reverses, that certainly makes the case for financials a lot stronger. And of course, if you have the background of a structural underpenetration, that clearly helps. But at this point in time, I'd definitely be focusing on the lower interest rate angle to be playing the financials.
Varun, come tomorrow, there will also be quite a few big bang results. You mentioned that you're not a fan of real estate, so won't be asking you on DLF. But with respect to M&M, we are expecting that the volume growth of close to 7%, that's going to boost the overall revenues. What kind of expectations do you have from this counter?
Well, I think after a long time, from the channel checks that we have, we are hearing that the tractor volume growth has really bounced back, to the extent of 5 to 10% growth on a year-on-year basis. We are also hearing that the SUV growth continues to be quite robust. In fact, the only car segment which continues to grow on a year-on-year basis is the premium hatchback and the SUVs. So we believe that this segment should continue to do well. Auto space in generally should also benefit from the lowering of interest rates in the times to come, and we would be bullish on this sector.
Sandeep, autos have looked distinctly weak though. M&M, despite the fact that there is an event risk, what do the charts suggest?
I think 1010, 1020 has been a very strong resistance a week back. I don't expect that to be crossed. And on the downside, 940, 950, which is 20 rupees lower from the current levels. That would be a strong support. So I think broadly 950, 1000, 1020, that range.
Tata Power will also be delivering its numbers tomorrow. Revenues are seen higher by close to 30%, and the reported profit is seen at 260 crores vis-a-vis a loss of 629 crores. Sandeep, how are you viewing Tata Power on the charts? It was off by close to 0.8% today.
Well, it has broken a very strong support at 93 on the weekly charts. So at a level of 90, I would talk of some downside to the tune of 84, 85. So that makes it almost 5-6% if you count in percentage terms. But broadly, I would sense it as term it as weak. Though I would not be that keen on going short. I mean, it will not break 84, 85. So small downside is what I would say.
Varun, would it surprise you if indeed there are some profits being posted? The power space has been in a bit of a limbo. Adani Power, Tata Power, you name it, everything in the red really. But if indeed it makes a profit of 260 crores versus a loss, would it be a positive for Tata Power?
Well, I think the important thing to watch out for in this sector is how quickly the readjustment of tariffs can happen. I know for most of the UMPPs, we saw very aggressive bidding last 3, 4, 5 years, and we believe that now we are in a situation where most of these UMPPs require fuel adjustment to be included in the new tariffs, and tariffs need to be revised upwards. So I think last 2 months there has been a lot of positive noise, and CRC apparently is keen to allow the private players increase in tariffs. I think as soon as these things are resolved, we would see a significant jump in profitability of most of these power companies. So I think as far as this quarter is concerned, it's too early to comment. But I think going forward, if the actual increase in tariffs does come about, we are looking at almost 50 to 100% increase in profits from what we are sitting as of today.
Sandeep, how do the technical trends look on an HDIL as well as DLF, which is slated to come out with numbers?
Well, both are looking weak. Which is weaker is a little difficult. Probably HDIL is looking a little more weaker in terms of the news that has come. I think if HDIL takes out a level of 43, then it can go down to any level. I mean, it can go down to even 25. So DLF short little bit of downside, but HDIL more downside is what I would term.
Okay, we'll take that break then. But before we do that, Varun, just wanted your opinion on Sun TV. Of course, it was a resounding response to the OFS. Is there anything from this media basket which interests you?
Well, I think media as a space, the only sub-segment which shows any signs of real increase in profits is really the broadcasting space. I think as far as the cable and distribution space is concerned, as far as the print space is concerned, we have clearly not seen any pickup of advertising growth. As we know, media space is dependent on increases in advertising growth for it to show increase in revenues and profits. So I think going at the current valuations, one would be a little circumspect about whether there is really any value in most of these companies. I would wait for a revival in the broader economy and hence a revival in advertising growth before taking a more constructive view on this sector.
Let's get you a view on some of the stocks to keep on your radar. We'll start off with Pranay, who joins us from our research team to talk about what the dealing rooms are betting on. Pranay.
Well, dealers are very upbeat on Sun TV, that was shining even in today's trade, up by more than 4% as its OFS was oversubscribed by 2.1 times. And dealers have indicated that the oversubscription was largely paced by the strong interest seen from European funds, which have found the floor price of 403 rupees per share very attractive. The indicative price actually came in a little over 416 rupees. So therefore, dealers recommend buying as they see levels of 450 in the next 2 to 3 days. Next is Hero MotoCorp, where desks are indicating very aggressive accumulation by DIIs. In fact, they're saying that the accumulation is the highest, that the spurt is the highest that they've seen in the last 1 month. And fundamentally, a couple of steps that the company is taking, especially the export expansion measures, is seen to be working well over the medium term to counter the stagnating demand in the domestic market. Also, the softness in commodity prices and the continued weakness in yen is seen supportive for the margins. So therefore, dealers here are also recommending buying on strong technical trends, and they see an upside of more than 5% in the next 1 week, where the stock can touch levels of 1850 in the next 1 week.
Thanks for that, Pranay. In fact, Hero is one, Sun is the other. And speaking of Sun TV, Sandeep Wagle has calls there too. Sandeep, amongst the two calls, one of them is Sun TV.
Yes, I have a buy in Sun TV, stop loss of 419, target of 450. And I have a sell in Grasim, stop loss of 2930, target 2860.
Sunil, commodities have evidently been a weak pocket. Would you take a bearish stance on Indian metals names at the current levels, or are we done with most of the selling pressure?
See, look, I think on a headline basis, a lot of these metal stocks in India are cheap, and clearly that is attractive. I should highlight, though, that the outlook for metals globally is still challenging. You do have a situation where a lot of metal companies in India have a gearing problem, which will have a headwind as well. I think there are certainly some names which are involved in corporate restructuring. I think that look attractive. So I would be very selective on a name-by-name basis in this segment rather than put a generic approach to this.
Varun, what is it that you would watch out for? The people who are listening to you right now would want to know that if you had some money at your disposal and if you could invest it tomorrow, where would you advise investing, or where would you invest into?
So as I said, we continue to be positive on selective pharma names. So we believe that contract research and manufacturing opportunity is a pretty big opportunity, and there are several companies out there which are doing quite well. Also, I think selected NBFCs, which would benefit from the rate easing cycle that we are seeing unfolding, would also do well, and that's again one space where we believe there's a lot of value left.
Sunil, infrastructure and capital goods, that's a trade that's not really worked out well, even from a long-term view. Do you think there's scope for bottom fishing there? What's your view on some of the regulatory troubles that the sector has also been facing?
Look, at this point, tempting as it might be, I would rather miss some of the initial uptake in this space simply because the regulatory environment, the clearance for projects has been missing, and I think while there is promise, that is yet to morph into reality. So until we get visibility on that, I wouldn't be tempted. The other area in this space which is important is that you are in effectively the final run-up to an election year, and our business is going to be taking long-term investment decisions in this environment. That is probably unlikely. So I would not be tempted just as yet in the infrastructure space.
Sandeep, the one stock that dealers were suggesting buying into even in tomorrow's session is Hero. I'm surprised because it's seen about a short covering, yes, but can it actually do more even on the expiry day?
Neeraj, I am not surprised at all. In fact, I've been hearing that this is short covering. I think it is a clear breakout pattern. Now, I don't understand the difference if it is going up on good volumes and breaking the important resistances and clearing them. I think it should be termed as a positive pattern. And I see, okay, don't talk of the next few days or don't talk of FNO. The pattern suggests that it can even go beyond 1900. So yes, in that sense, it is a buy even at the current level of 1780, 1750. And I would talk of a 1920, 1940 target for an investor. For an FNO trader, we have talked of a target of 1820 to 1840.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for taking time out and joining in with your opinion on the equity market.